Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Education to order. Mr. Schimpf, can you please call the roll?
Oh, you first. Mr. Fain.
Here.
Ms. Cummings.
Here.
Dr. Dreisen.
Here.
Mr. Greenbaum.
Here.
Ms. Manzano.
Here.
Ms. Palmer.
Here.
Ms. Winters.
Here. Thank you. Please rise and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act has been given by the Board Secretary on August 5, 2026 in the following manner. Posted notice on the school bulletin board in the administration building, posted on the board's official website, and transmitted to the clerk of Cherry Hill Township. Please be advised this meeting is being recorded and live streamed. We'll begin with first public comment, which is our only public comment this evening. If you would like to speak, please clearly state your name and municipality. We'll alternate between speakers in the room and those online. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to speak, and the timer on the screen will indicate the amount of time you have remaining. Students are always given the opportunity to speak first. By custom and practice, we begin in the room. Is there anyone who would like to make public comment today? I don't see anyone in the room who would like to make public comment. Looking online, we do see a hand raised, phone number ending in 788. You can unmute. It's your turn. You'll have 3 minutes for public comment.
Hello, my name is Jeff Podowitz and I live in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I sent something to the school board August 18th, 2026, and I said, please listen to what I said at a Cherry Hill Township meeting, August 17th. It is time Cherry Hill leaderships directly publicize and energize the general Cherry Hill public how poorly our community as a whole has been treated with school funding, in the media, etc. I've been following this issue for 25 plus years. We are reaching a tipping point. This year, our tax levy was increased 7.4% and services were cut. Examples over the last few years: services for K-12 students have been cut, and students with disabilities have been cut. Examples of support: remember, these kids underwent COVID. The middle school model was taken away. We went to a junior high school model. That's one quick example. All right. Another quick example is that class size has been increased at upper elementary schools. Again, those kids went through COVID learning loss. Also, recently, they're going to stop courtesy busing. All right? It's just going to start slowly at the high school level, but it will continue. There'll be further cuts. I think everyone needs to understand that is courtesy busing. And it's important to understand all those things. Meanwhile, our aid will be continually be cut. I mean, I've said this all before. Okay, our school aid will be continually be cut. Now, I want you to understand, meanwhile, we have preschool expansion. And I know, why don't you talk about what's going to happen in 2 years when the preschool expansion funds will disappear? And it's going to be folded into the SFRA funding formula, which already cheats us and will continue cheating us. We're talking about an increase of 1,800 to 2,000 kids, all right, based on our SFRA funding. None of you have talked about it. No one is addressing it. And it's something that definitely, we're in a tipping point already with what's going on and with our aid continually being cut. But what's going to happen when that happens? And we're educating another 18 to 2,000 students utilizing the SFRA formula fund as is right now. Why don't you discuss this? What's going to happen? Why don't you discuss this today? Because it's coming up shortly and services are already being cut for other students as we expand services for preschool students. Why don't you discuss it? And it's something that needs to be. Folks, we're in trouble as a community, and as a school district when it comes to funding. Thank you very much. My time should be up shortly, I think, but thank you very much. Okay?
Thank you, Dr. Podowitz. Thank you for your comment. We appreciate you calling in. Going back to the room, is there anyone in the room who would like to make public comment today? This is our only public comment section of the day. Seeing no one in the room, looking back online. I see no other hands raised, no one in the room or online. So we're going to close public comment and move into our board retreat, which is why we're here today. I'd like to welcome Dr. Lori Banslow from NJSBA, who will be providing the board with our retreat and training. Thank you, Dr. Banslow.
Okay, thank you, Gina. And just on behalf of New Jersey school boards, I just want to say thank you to this board because you are very close to becoming a certified board after today. So give yourselves a round of applause because you are taking the time to, work on your professional development as a board. And today you're taking the time out of your Saturday to go over consensus building, working together as a team. In addition, we're going to be talking about our board goals today and our board self-evaluation. So just want to thank you for that. So give me a second. We're going to jump in. Are we ready? All right. So we're going to jump in. And I am going to move away from the mic. All right, our beach ball today is since it's not a beach day, so I'm bringing the beach to you. We're going to add a little bit of fun to the work that you're going to be doing today because you are going to be doing some work. So the beach ball, when you get the beach ball, there's questions on it. So it's kind of a listening activity as well. So when you get it, the first person, of course, can pick any question that's on it. But when you get it the second time, please pick a different question and answer it. Our beach ball will be used when we're doing we're making a transition. So we'll get started. All right.
What is your favorite movie? I have two. One of them is just old school Jumanji and Zootopia.
All right, and I will take off the inner tube for now. Okay, so what we're going to do is I need you to get up. This will be the only time I'm going to make you get up. And I know you have your lunch. So the other thing I want to say is just, do you want to go straight through today or do you want to take a break at some point? Let me know if you want to take a break. Straight through. So, okay, all right. So we're gonna cruise right through this morning. And please, if you need to get up, just do your thing. All right. All right. So everybody get up and find a partner. And just find one partner, somebody that you might not normally gravitate to. All right. All right. That's fine. All right. Now you got to stand up, gentlemen. All right, friends. Come. All right. I want you to just face each other and just take a quick look at your partner. All right. Hey, partner, how you doing? Good morning. All right. All right. Now turn your back to your partner. Turn your back. All right. Change 3 things about yourself right now, each of you, without looking at your partner. Just change 3 things. All right. Now, when you're ready, turn around and take turns telling each other, what are the 3 things that your partner changed? Let's see. And when you're all done sharing, just look up at me so I know that you're ready. All right. All right. Looks like everybody, girls, you good? Okay. All right. So the most important thing is that, we talk about listening skills, and we're going to do that with our beach ball today, but also really seeing each other, really listening and seeing each other is really critical as a board team. All right, change partners. Find a new partner. This will be the last round. All right, so now you know the drill. All right. Same thing. All right, same thing. Change 3 things. Turn when you're ready. Yep. This will be our last round, I promise. Just change 3 things, and when you're ready, face your partner and share. All right, when you're ready, you can just look up here when you're ready. Okay, great job, team. You did awesome. So the other thing with this, what we want to point out is often we think of change when we change things as a board and as a district, we think of it as taking something away, but it really is not. It's just like changing a wristwatch to your other wrist. You still keep the rich history and traditions of Cherry Hill. So that's the other piece. So come on down and sit down, and I won't make you get up again, I promise. Okay, we're gonna start off with our consensus building this morning, but I just want to let you know in your folder there are just resources. You're really not going to need anything major in there, but there's resources regarding consensus, and also I'm going to be handing out a few things, and also your board goals, which we're going to be talking about today. All right. So consensus building, how do we get to yes and working as a team in order to solve difficult problems in the district? Okay. Marcus, I don't think it's clicking for some reason. It's not clicking up here. Is it clicking there? Thank you, Marcus. Okay. Still not going. Yeah, it was working. We had it working before. Okay, so we're going to jump right in. So how do we get to yes? And it really starts with really listening to each other, understanding, and knowing that there are different personalities on the board, and really working together as a team and understanding each other. So how do we effectively do this? Okay, let me go back. Hold on a second. Okay, so difficult behaviors are not only found in children. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. So we have difficult behaviors as adults too. So where do we start? How do we start to work together and come to consensus and make decisions for the district to move forward? So I want you to have a little bit of fun with this, because we're going to talk about some different types of difficult behaviors that us at New Jersey school boards have put together. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm definitely fit into many of these. My sister looked at this and she said she's definitely procrastinator Paul, but I'm going to introduce you to Pushy Pete, procrastinator Paul, and it could be procrastinator Paula. All right. Debbie Downer, Snippy Sam, Firework Frank, Clam Clara, Bulldozer Bob, Hot Air Balloon Harry, or it could be hot air balloon Hannah, and positive Polly and negative Nellie. Now you can have some fun with this because we know that, we can think about our families because we have some of these folks in our families. You can think about yourself. And we can think about the together working as different things that pop up as we work together as a board team. So Pushy Pete, he's confrontational. He's aggressive. How do you deal with someone that might be on the board with you or in your life that is that type of personality? So you need to make sure that you stand up for yourself. You let Pushy Pete get the hostility out. So you got to let them get the hostility out and then jump right into that conversation with them because they're hot. They want to talk about it, and call Pushy Pete by name. Don't call him Pushy, but just say, Pete, let's talk. All right. And then maintain eye contact. And then eventually you sit down, have them sit down to kind of calm them down. Procrastinator Paul. All right. So the procrastinators meeting has been postponed today. So this kind of behavior, as everybody knows, is, the real reason many times someone procrastinates is they just don't want to commit. They can't make the decision. So they're really trying to figure out, I don't really know what I want to do. So they procrastinate. So you want to really, with this particular board member or person in your life, you want to listen for clues. You want to try to bring that out in them, make sure that you are helping them to come to solutions. So maybe give them a couple different solutions regarding a decision and support whatever decision they make, you support them. All right. It might not be the decision you would make, but just make sure you're supporting them as well. And then keep action steps in your hands and watch for anger or withdrawal. All right. So that's your procrastinator. Debbie Downer. Remember Debbie Downer from Saturday Night Live, right? Okay. I think Debbie Downer's still on there. So Debbie Downer she feels overwhelmed. She's feeling helpless. I can tell you sometimes I feel like that. Standard is perfection. Misery loves company when you're with Debbie Downer. All right. So how do you cope with that? As if you have someone on the board that is exhibiting some of these behaviors, sometimes you have to listen to them, let them complain, acknowledge what is said so that they know that you're hearing them. To your point, I hear what you're saying. Don't agree or apologize. All right. Stick with what your belief is and then move to problem solving. Ask, how do you want to move forward, Debbie? So let's talk about Snippy Sam, or it could be Snippy Samantha. What are the characteristics? They can't help themselves. Sometimes they make some rude comments. They might be a little sarcastic, thinking that they're just being funny. They don't really mean to be that way. They wait to the end of a discussion sometimes, and they sabotage the decisions. Well, I know everybody voted that way, but I still don't agree. All right, that can happen. They make comments under their breath that are just loud enough that you can hear them. All right. And how do you cope with them? You smoke them out. All right. We're going to smoke Snippy Sam out. Don't let them hide behind the group. Try to have them seek others' opinions and conduct regular problem-solving meetings and nip the snippiness in the butt. Sometimes you might need to meet with them separately, if you're the board president or board vice president, just to kind of let them know that you hear them, but let them know how they're coming across. So Firework Frank is very unfocused at meetings, brings up totally irrelevant things that have nothing to do with the action item, for example, can be out of control with their emotions. They just can't help themselves. So how do you cope with Firework Frank? You just allow time for them to vent. If they have to vent, let them get it out. Break the tantrum by stating, okay, stop now. And you don't have to say stop. You can use other words, but you kind of have to put the kibosh on it, especially if you're the board president. Take them seriously because something is really bothering them. They may not really understand the action item, and give them a private timeout period. Spend some time with them, maybe one-on-one, just in a meeting, just to let them know how they're coming across and to help them. Clara. A lot of times people think that Clara is just not even interested in being on the board. Doesn't say a word, no verbal feedback, no discernible body language, just seems to be very uninterested, but she really is interested. Okay. So she needs encouragement with some open-ended questions. You need to be patient and wait for her to respond, because she might be feeling like a little nervous about speaking out in public. Don't fill the silence with conversation. Just give her, let's take that wait time we give to kids in classrooms. All right. And then plan enough time to wait them out and then set up another meeting if you have to, one-on-one, if necessary, just to try to build up their confidence. So Bulldozer Bob, okay, and again, it could be Bulldozer Betty, seldom in doubt, okay? Always blame someone else, is an authority on everything, all right? They know everything. So you need to just listen carefully to them and paraphrase what they're saying so that everybody's understanding what they're coming across with. Use questions to raise issues and convey an appreciation of their knowledge, but be sure that you thoroughly check the accuracy of the materials that you're presenting, because they're going to dissect it and say, this is what, so I'm sure we all have Bulldozer Bobs in our life. So Hot Air Harry just loves to hear themselves talk and speaks for, just to get attention, always knows the right answer. Sometimes they're really not speaking to you, they're speaking to the public. All right. So, whether it's Hot Air Harry or Hannah, how do you deal with them? Just state the correct facts. If there's an alternative opinion, you can share that an alternative opinion. Provide ways to help them blow out their steam gracefully. And then also you probably would need to cope with them in private as well and have a one-on-one meeting just to kind of let them know how they're coming across. Those one-on-one meetings really are very helpful. Many board presidents, I've had conversations with them when they're dealing with difficult situations. It really, really helps. So Positive Polly, she tries to make everybody happy. Okay. She doesn't really have an opinion sometimes about different action items. She avoids confrontation at any cost. She does not want to have any kind of negative feelings. She'll often say yes without even considering the implications. So for Polly, make sure that they feel that they're valued, ask what they really would prefer. So you're going to have to draw it out of them and listen to their humor for hidden clues, because sometimes they'll have some humor and there's something in there that you really need to listen to. And then Negative Nelly. We have a lot of negative Nellies in our world. Is disagreeable, belligerent. She very much is a pessimist, believes nothing can be changed or improved, and can genuinely feel helpless and depressed. So they might need some support. So just refuse to be dragged down by any negative Nellies or negative Neds. Make optimistic but realistic statements and don't argue. So getting to consensus and making decisions for the district is a big job, and finding the middle ground. And the middle ground is always focused on the beautiful students in Cherry Hill. That's always your moral compass. And as a former superintendent in New York and New Jersey, that if I made a decision that was great for kids, I knew that I was doing the right thing and it never steered me wrong. So how do we get to consensus? So, sometimes you're talking and you're speaking different languages. All right. So here we've got meow and bark, and, they really don't really understand each other, what they're saying. So separate the people from the problems. All right. So focus on what the issue is. Try not to focus on the person if you're upset about something they said or something that happened. Get back to that problem and solve it for the kids. And, you want to make sure that you are doing that and understanding all sides of it and get everybody involved. Okay. Make sure everybody has a chance to speak up about a particular issue or an action item if people have questions. And then provide everyone a way to gracefully change their mind if they want to, because sometimes you come to the board table about an item and then you're like, oh, okay. I really, really understand it. And that might change the way that you're looking at things, and making sure that you're communicating effectively and are active listener. So focus on finding the shared solutions at the table. All right. Focus on finding those shared solutions, behind opposing positions. All right. So make sure that you're sharing. Look forward. Don't look back. Don't say, well, the other day you said X, Y, and Z. No, they probably right now might have changed their minds. So just keep working towards that solution and be concrete but flexible. Okay. Because you might change your decision about something as well, and be hard on the problem, not on each other. So be soft on each other. And develop options for mutual gains. And many times when you're brainstorming, you're all coming up with different ideas. And I love this graphic because it shows that each of you bring a unique perspective to the Cherry Hill Board of Education. You are elected by your community for a reason. You are officials of the state. So you come up with different ideas to solve things, and together you bind it together and you make that decision for the mutual gains. So the 5 steps of consensus building is defining what the problem is. What is the issue? All right. And brainstorming solutions. How are we going to solve this issue? You are not the only district in the state of New Jersey that is having funding problems. You are not alone. And I know that you know that. And, we're here to support you at New Jersey school boards as much as we can. So yeah, you define the problem, you brainstorm the solutions, and then you pick which one is really going to help. Or maybe a couple of them might help you. And then you start to implement what the solution is and go back and review it. So that 5 steps should always be happening in your mind and as a team. So be sure that you're looking at objective criteria to find solutions, all right? And concentrate on the merits of the solution, okay? Not the metal of the parties. And be open to reason and closed to threats. So that's our presentation on teamwork. And I have something that I'm going to give Gina a survey that you guys can use at a different time, because we won't have time to do that this morning. And I promise you, it's not a survey to see if you're pushy Pete or negative Nelly. I promise you that. But it has different categories on it, and take it home with you, do the survey. And if you want to share, you can decide together as a team if you want to share it out, or just do it for your own individual knowledge. So let me just give that to Gina. Okay, and what it is, it's a teamwork style to get, talking and solving solutions together. So I'm going to ask Marcus, could you move us to the goal setting piece? We're just going to put that up there for a minute, and I'm going to talk to the board. We're going to transition. So the Cupcake Club series is great. I remember those days when my daughter she's 27 now, and she was reading chapter books. And one day I think we're on vacation, and I'm sitting on the chair, and she sits right next to me with her book. I'm like, oh, this is great. It was the first time I didn't have to chase her and run around, but great memories. So that's great that you're doing that, reading with your child. So important. All right. So we're going to talk about our board self-evaluation. So I put together an executive summary for you, and I'm going to ask each of you to just read a paragraph of it. I'll hand it out in 1 second. And I also have the graphs, and I have the evaluation. Gina, are you okay if I hand that out to everybody and just remind them of the confidentiality of it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So my one thing don't want to forget is when you're done reading it at home, because it's going to be some homework for you, which we'll talk about in a minute, shred it, or because we don't want that out in the community. Okay. It's your own self-evaluation of yourself. And we're going to talk about it today. So people that are listening are going to be able to hear. So just take a moment to read that executive summary to yourself, and then I'm going to just kind of go around the table and ask each of you to just read a paragraph. Just take a look at that first. Okay. Did everybody get a chance to read the summary? All right. So I want to say a couple things, just so folks in the community that might be listening in at some point know this as well. Not every board takes the time to do the board self-evaluation. It is so important to do. So you need to give yourselves a pat on the back because you are looking at the areas that you have strengths, that you've grown, and some areas that you want to work on together. And we're going to talk about those in a minute. So, congratulations for making sure that you do that board self-evaluation as well, because we're going to take this and we're going to use the thicker document is the one that you're going to be bringing home and looking at, because that's going to help us when we're going to formulate our board goals today from some of these themes. So I want you to be thinking about the executive summary, which we're going to read out loud in a minute. And I want you to think about from that executive summary, and I brought your old goals from last year. Are there some goals that we want to keep from last year that we still need to work on? Or are there some new board goals that we need to have? And you did a great job last summer. You set 3 goals, which is really the number that we tell boards. Some boards will have 2. I think anything over 3 main goals is too much. That's just my opinion. So I think sticking to 3 goals is really a good thing if you get to that point when you start to brainstorm together. All right. So I want you to just be thinking about that. And then what you're going to do with that thicker document, the actual board self-evaluation document, is after we come up with those 3 new goals for the Cherry Hill Board of Education for the 2026-2027 school year, you're going to work on action plans. And I'm going to show you an example of that after we look at the board self-evaluation together. The action plans are so critical to put those goals down in writing with specific tasks that you have to complete and who's going to be in charge of it. Okay, that was something that came out of the evaluation that some of you felt like, we did do some great things, but maybe if we make things more specific. And how are you going to do that? I'm going to send it to Gina. I'll send you a draft, Gina, after the meeting. And what you'll do is you're going to share that draft with the board to make sure everybody's happy. We'll wordsmith it today, make sure the wording is good. And then you should assign like one person to each goal to start to put together an action plan for that goal. And then you're going to share those. You guys use Google Docs? Okay, so share that and make sure that all of you are looking at that action plan and the goals and that everybody's good with it. So you have to do that action plan. I'm really stressing that. It's very, very important. I met with a board in Burlington County when I first started, and they're like, Lori, we had such great goals, but we forgot to write them down. We really forgot to do the action plan. So I came in and we did that together. All right, so let's take a look at the executive summary, and we're going to read that out loud. So I think we're going to start over here. Candy, would you mind reading the overview?
The 2026 board self-evaluation reflects the board operating in the proficient range across most governance areas with strong performance in student achievement, resource management, community leadership, and individual member contributions. Members identified significant improvements in governance, collaboration, meeting effectiveness, and strategic focus.
Great. And the one other thing, thank you, Candy. The one other thing I want to stress is anything over 2.5 that you're going to see is really good. So this board, and I want the community to hear this board took this very seriously. You put in a lot of information, and it was you did a thorough job with your evaluation. So I just wanted to say that. Okay. Bridget, would you read key strengths?
Student achievement remains the board's central focus. Strong fiscal stewardship, improved budget oversight, enhanced community engagement, effective committee work, stronger policy development efforts, and improved relationships with district leadership were consistently identified as strengths.
Great. Thank you, Bridget. And this is really, really important because student achievement should be your main focus. All of you are focusing on the very, very important things that a board should be focusing on. So that was excellent. All right, Dean?
Sure. Areas for growth. Board governance accountability remains the greatest opportunity for improvement. Members cited the need for clearer board goal tracking, more measurable outcomes, stronger communication among members, greater transparency, better policy implementation oversight, and improved follow-through on board initiatives.
Great. Thank you so much. Alan?
Student achievement. The board demonstrated a strong commitment to data-driven decision-making, curriculum oversight, equity considerations, and transparent communication regarding student outcomes. Challenges remain in ensuring equitable opportunities and supports for all learners.
Okay, great. Gina? Resource management.
The board showed strength in budget oversight, financial planning, audit review, facilities management, and maintaining fiscal responsibility despite continuing state aid pressures.
Okay, great. Community.
Members highlighted successful advocacy efforts, expanded community outreach, town hall engagement, and increased visibility throughout the district. Continued efforts to broaden stakeholder participation and strengthen two-way communication were recommended.
Excellent. Thank you. And then our last is our strategic priorities for 2026, 2027.
Okay, there are 7. Number 1, establish measurable board goals and monitor progress. Number 2, strengthen governance accountability. Number 3, improve board-wide communication and transparency. Number 4, expand community engagement opportunities. Number 5, continue proactive policy development and bylaw review. Number 6, plan for long-term financial sustainability. And number 7, maintain focus on student achievement and equity.
Okay, so keep those in mind and put them in, just have that out in front of you. You might want to highlight a few things that might be important to you when we get to that board goal setting piece, which will be our final piece that we'll do together. Now, the other thing I want to share is the graph. If you take a look at that graph, luckily you did your board self-evaluation last year because it was the first year of our new evaluation because we had revised it because members really wanted something different. So you can see your comparison, I'm looking at the bars first, this piece. The very, very light piece is your 2025 and 2026 is the results in each of the elements. So there was a slight increase in vision, mission, and goals. There was also a slight increase in policy. I know that was one of your goals last year. So you really did make some strides there. And there was a slight decrease in your accountability for student achievement. So that clearly came out of your board self-evaluation. That's something that you want to continue. That is just a continuous process all the time. And then also we had a nice increase in governing together as a team and working together and being accountable for our decisions. So excellent job. And I know that's something that you've been striving for. And then also a real nice little increase there in the resource management and oversight. All right, we want to, give your BA a nice pat on the back and your superintendent. I know our superintendent is at his daughter's wedding today, so we want to wish him well and wish the family well. And then also community leadership, there was a nice increase there, and that's something that's very important to you. So if you flip it over onto the back, I love this little graph because it breaks it down into percentages. So you really can see where are our strengths and what are some areas that we really kind of want to maybe focus on when we start talking about those board goals with Lori. So the first, the strength that you have is really, having vision, mission, and goals. And you're here today to do that and to continue to do that. Policy is something that I know that you want to continue to focus on. And you've done a great job with that as well. You've had some growth there. And then another real great strength was your accountability for student achievement. All right. You are holding yourselves accountable. And I think majority of you feel that way. There's a couple that feel that we need to do more, which is fine. Governance as a team is also a really nice strength, but something that you want to continue to work on. And that's why you're here today. You wanted to have a little bit of a team building and working together session. And these are the kind of forums where you can have it. You can't always do that at a formal board meeting. And then resource management and oversight is a strength, but it is an area that all of you have your eye on the ball. All right. We know that that's something that that you are wanting to continue to focus on, like many, many other boards across the state. And we will continue to advocate on your behalf with, in Trenton. So just know that we've got your back. And also I want to let you know at our county meetings coming up, that is going to be the topics. All right. We're going to be talking about alternative funding revenue sources that you can think about. The group really wanted, your county group really wanted to talk about finance and financial. So because everybody is feeling the pain, so that you can all kind of talk together and get some and lean on each other and get some support. The other piece is community leadership. That is definitely a strength of your board. So what I want you to do with the larger piece, because I kind of went through it myself and just kind of dissected it, and I'm not going to take the time right now to go through this with you, but when we come, I want you to, this is your homework, all right? So when you're sitting on the beach this afternoon, hopefully the sun will come out. You're going to sit down and you're going to look at your board self-evaluation. All right. Or one night before you go to bed, look at your board self-evaluation. Go over everything. Now, names are not attached, so you don't know. Sometimes you'll know the flavor. It's very, very, it's very confidential, but take a look at all the great things that you're doing. You're doing some really great things. There's some really great comments in there that you each put in there. And you also put a lot of things that are challenges and an opportunity for growth in each of the different elements. So take some time to look at that. And many of these things that are in here that many of you commented can be things that you add to your action plans, those details that you're going to work on your own. I will not be working on those with you. I'm just going to help you with the broad goals. All right. So please make sure you take the time to read this, to look at it. And I'm going to pause to see if you have any questions about the board self-evaluation at this point. Okay. And once again, thank you for doing that, because it's really a critical part of board governance doing that. All right, so we're gonna keep cruising here. We're gonna cruise now to our board goals. So I'm gonna hand out a few things. So just bear with me for a minute. Okay, so what I'm passing out to the board right now is their board goals from last year. And we also put up a chart with the goals. I'm not sure if they can read my crazy handwriting, but I just put them up there for them as well. So I'm going to read them. Hold on. So here are the Cherry Hill Board of Education goals from 2025 and 2026. The first one was policy. The board will take a more proactive role in policy development by identifying and updating 3 key policies with and support current district goals and operational processes. Governance. The board will create and maintain comprehensive Board of Education calendar that includes significant training opportunities, statutory requirements, and other key milestones essential to effective governance. Community leadership was the third theme. Each board member will participate in at least one school or community engagement activity per month as a representative of the Board of Education, fostering stronger connections between the board, schools, and the community. And these were excellent goals, excellent wording for the goals. So now I just want to walk you through, just as a reminder, of goal setting. So just to get your heads now into our next transition. So let's do a little transition here.
Okay, what is my favorite type of exercise? I work from home, so I try to do about a 1 or 2 mile bike ride at lunch every day.
All right, so let's take a look at our goal setting PowerPoint here. I'm going to walk you through that. All right, so why do we set board goals? For better governance, improvement, effective communication, and making sure that we're working together as a team and that we are holding ourselves accountable to the school community and to the community at large. So effective school boards set goals, all right? And that's what you do. You take the time for your own professional development as a board. You take the time on a Saturday to set your board goals that are very clear. And so you have very high expectations for this board. And you work together to make sure that you have shared beliefs and that's what we're going to do today is make sure everybody, before they leave, they feel really comfortable about the 3 goals that you're going to set. So the board goal development process is, you pretty much have it down, but it is complex. So your board goals really, really focus on what the board is going to do. And when you evaluate yourself, Gina put in the goals into your board self-evaluation and might have added some artifacts or evidence of meeting those goals. She didn't have to, but then you each took the time to evaluate, how did we do with these goals? Do we need to improve any more on certain goals? Your district goals are that is something your superintendent will put together with his cabinet, with his team. And those are the goals that you use to evaluate your superintendent, not your board goals. Because we do have some boards that get confused sometimes. Your board goals are your goals and you know that. But the district goals, that's for the superintendent evaluation. And then your superintendent might have his own personal goals. He might be in a book club with other colleagues, or he might be focusing on something. I saw that he was at a professional development in New York City. He had posted, and those are really kind of his own personal goals, and they might also lean over towards the district goals. Merit goals are something that are put into contracts. That I'm not sure if there's not many superintendents that do this right now, but it's something that is very unique just to New Jersey. So the timeline, you are right where the board, our little red arrow is. All right. So you guys have this totally down. All right. And I can't see it because it's so far away. So I'm going to just come a little closer for a minute if it's okay. And then I'll repeat it in the microphone. So putting together the action plans is very critical. And many boards, and I know Gina was at our leadership summit. I wasn't there this past year, but I'm sure you were probably there again. Presidents and vice presidents. Adam, did you go as well? Were you there this past year for the leadership summit? I'm not sure.
No, I was not able to make it, but Ms. Winters was.
Perfect. So she was able to share. When we have this leadership summit, it's a great opportunity for board presidents and vice presidents to get together and share ideas. And one of the things that everybody loved is one board had shared that they always read, and you guys probably do that. They read their board goals at every board meeting. They start off, and then they kind of just share a few things that they've done. So you're being very transparent with your community. They know that you have goals, and they're hearing what you're doing, and not, so they know exactly what's happening. All right, I'm going to jump over to the PowerPoint. It is very evident to us as school boards that the Cherry Hill Board of Education knows what the board governance cycle is, and they actually, complete every single task. So great job there. All right. So I'm going to skip through here. So I want you to just take a look at those questions. I'm not going to read them. Just pause for a minute just to look because, you know, where are we going to start today? So just take a look at those questions. Okay, so you might want to be thinking about maybe some of our one of the goals we have we might want to continue, or some boards build off of those, you know, kind of like a little ladder going up. All right, here's a few examples. I gave you your examples, but some districts complete the superintendent's evaluation within the statutory timeline. That's an actual goal that many boards will do because they can't seem to get it done. It's hard, but they want to get it done because they don't want to lose those points on CUSAC. Review our bylaws to review and revise to ensure they reflect our current practices. Explore the option of committee of the whole or separate committees. And then the last example is become more effective advocates of public education through professional development and advocacy. All right. So this is, and I'm going to send this to Gina. I'll send her the template. This is the action planning template, which is so important. I'm not sure if you guys did it this past year, but you're going to put your board goal at the very top. And then after that, you can write an objective for that board goal. So it's something specific. And then you're going to list the major activities that you're going to do together as a team to get that goal done. So for example, the board will take a more proactive role in policy development by identifying and updating 3 key policies that align with and support current district goals and operational processes. You took certain steps, you had certain activities, whether it was forming a committee, making sure everybody was informed, you know, you list those activities, and then you're going to put who is going to be in charge of it. Is it the board? Are we expecting the staff to participate? You know, with the policy, of course, you work with your superintendent with that. And what are the resources that we're going to use to complete this goal? I have a district that is, they want to really improve the board's communication with the community. They want to really get a sense of how the community is perceiving them as a board. So they are going to, and it was great, they had their attorney there that night because they wanted to jump right into it, but he jumped in and said, part of our goal is we're going to research different types of surveys and find out best practices of boards who actually did that to decide what tool we're going to use in order to make that happen. All right, so that was just an example, and they talked a little bit about some of their resources when they put together their action plan. And then what's the timeline? Is it going to be done by the end of the school year? Could it be a multi-level goal? Like we want to get started on this now, but the timeline can be, 2028, right? It's whatever you want it to be as a board, whatever you think is doable. And then the indicators of success are important. You listed so many great indicators of success, and many times you don't really get to celebrate all the great things that you've done. And I encourage you to talk about your goals and what you're doing so the community, and you might do that already, so forgive me if you do that. It's really, really a good thing to do. Okay. So the action plan, I went over that pretty thoroughly. That's very important. And also be sure to share it. And I know that you work very well with your superintendent. Be sure to share those goals with your superintendent as they are formulating those district goals. And just to make sure that he's on board and that he understands what the board is working on, because he is a member of the board. He's not a voting member, but he is a member of your team. Okay. And I just want to say thank you for everything that you do for the children in Cherry Hill. So now you're going to roll up your sleeves. And I'm going to take my jacket off because I'm a little warm. I want you to start, we're going to brainstorm some goals. So I'm going to get some paper and put it up. Okay, so I'm going to stand up here. Normally I work on the chart paper, so I'm going to ask when Jason, if he comes back, Jason, you're going to be with us. Can I bother you because I got to stay? Would you? I'm going to give you some chart paper, and you can hang it up over there. Would you mind, like, when we have something important, you can just write it up on the chart paper? He didn't know I was going to make him work today. And I just want to say thank you to Jason and Marcus, our team. They really, yes, they took care of me this morning. And who was your custodian, Marcus? What was her name? There, she came out to my car and she helped me bring everything in. So you have a great team, very welcoming. That does not happen in every district we go to. So just want to thank them for coming out on a Saturday. And now I'm going to make Jason work a little bit just for a while. All right. So what do you think? Let's take a look at your first goal. Is this a goal, this policy goal? Is this a goal you want to continue? Do you want to change the wording on it? Let us know. So I'm going to let you talk to each other now.
Bridget, go for it.
So I think we made progress on goal one for this year. I think, I look at our introduction of the technology package, which, personally, as one person, I would have loved to have had it wrapped up and kind of done by now. But I think getting those policies crafted, getting them introduced, it took a lot of time and effort. So I'm happy with the progress that we've made. Personally, rather than maybe extend this, I think I'd rather reframe it. I saw, references to things like regulations and our self-evaluation. That's a conversation I've had with members of the board, with administration. I think for year two, I personally prefer that we kind of turn our focus there. But I'm open to discussion. I don't know what other people think.
Thank you. So I concur with Ms. Palmer. I think some revision of this would be very helpful. Something she's taken on this year that as policy and legislation chair that we haven't done before is just a systematic review of all of our bylaws and stepping through our policies and seeing what are things we haven't even looked at in a long time. And most of them are fine, but a few of them we're finding little things to change. And I concur. Some districts have very mature, well-developed regulations that are public. Ours, we have regs when we need them, but a lot of them are not well-developed. And before it's something that could be published, it's something that needs to be gotten in shape first. I think that's a great goal to work on, because if there are rules somebody is going to be held to, they should be able to see them, but they need to be cleaned up and more mature before we get to that phase.
Okay. Right. Go ahead.
I also agree. In looking at all three of these goals, I feel there might be some leeway in the other two, but this is something the first one might be something to consider being a standing goal for every year, considering it's one of our most important jobs. I agree about all of the progress that we've made and the work that has been done this year as far as policy goes. So I would probably advocate for this being something that's constantly a goal of ours, and then maybe revision of the way that it's written or the amount, time frame, or what goes into it could be changed, but it's one of our most important jobs. So
okay. Cherry Hill team, does everybody thumbs up? Does everybody agree? Thumbs up? All right, so it looks like so let's change the wording though. Bridget, I know you had mentioned that. Is there anything it doesn't have to be perfect. Remember, just give us, what are you thinking?
I think I'd like to hear other people's opinions. Do we want to focus on regulation? Do we want to focus on a schedule for review of, like, a continuing review of things like bylaws? There are certain policies that we have to review annually. We've made it a point, and with Dr. Mahan as the admin liaison, I think we've gotten to a point where we're proficient in making sure that those things are updated annually. Step one is understanding, I think, where we are in terms of the regulations, what our regulations look like right now, and what sort of work would go into cleaning them up so we could start that process. That's probably where I would focus for this year. We could workshop this language, but understanding current regulations. I'll say it that way, but it's not exactly what I mean, and I'd like other people's thoughts. Understanding current regulations, Mrs. Winters.
I would just take out the three key policies. So the board will take a more proactive role in policy development by identifying and updating policies and regulations, because that's what we want to do, right? We want to identify and update that align with and support current district goals and operational processes. I think that captures it, but then I would get specific under the action steps.
Yeah, that makes
And I think
sense.
under the action steps is where we put the regulation piece. And I think one thing we're gonna have to think about is our goals last year were very board directed, board driven. If we're really gonna dive into the regs, we're gonna need help from
It's partnership.
our board solicitor. We're gonna need help from administration,
Mhm.
because right now the board doesn't even have visibility on a lot of that. So I don't think I would mess with the language too much. I would think I would take out the metric of 3 key and just make that policies and regulations, and then I would flesh it out under the
And the
action
action
plan.
plan. I support that.
One thing that I'd really like to add to the action planning, if everybody's amenable to it, is I would love to do a training on the board's role in policy, because I think we've been trying this year to change the board's role in policy from what it was to what it's becoming. But we've been doing it based on what we understand, but I think a formal training on that would be really helpful for us. Dr. Banlow, just so you know, in the past, the Policy and Legislation Committee really relied on Strauss Esme and just sort of reviewing their recommended updates. There are some choices to be made in that. Sometimes they give you options and you pick one. But this year, the board has really moved towards a much more active role in policy development and articulating things that are specific to Cherry Hill. So I think for us to get formal training in that would be really helpful. So I'm just going to strongly recommend that from my view. I think that's a missing piece for us as we move forward on this goal.
Agreed.
Melissa?
I was just going to say that I don't think you need the word more because it's redundant. Like, to be proactive is to already be doing more. So I just don't think that word's necessary. And that totally aligns with, I liked when you put PD for board members on your list of things, because I think that can help anyone anytime. So understanding those regulations before we get here, because sometimes some of us aren't understanding them until we're here, myself included. So not with giving us too much extra homework, because we do have a lot of reading that we do in between meetings, but a way to kind of cipher those all out so we understand them better, and then we can have a better discussion here.
Okay. Renee?
So a couple things. I think that we should be taking out we'll take a proactive role in general, because one, we've already done that. So that's check. We met that part of the goal for this year. So I think something more general, and at least in that part of the board will review and develop policy and regulation to align with district goals, et cetera. But something I also think that we need to keep in mind with the phrasing of this goal, and something that we kind of saw this year when we were reviewing our district goals, is last year we had a big discussion on whether it was in SMART format and these were measurable and all of that. And I think that it's very important that we are also creating this goal, all of our goals, to make sure that they are also measurable. And I agree about the action plan. A lot of what we are talking about can be fleshed out in the action plan items. But just keeping in mind that that's something that we saw this year, is that we reworded and revamped a lot of our district goals to make sure that they were actually measurable. And that was a discussion that we had last year. So I think that it's important for us to continue that momentum with these to make sure that they're actually measurable. And I don't know what that would look like, because I agree. I don't think we need to say like specifically 3, but something like an increase. I don't know what that looks like, but.
Dean, and then Bridget.
Thank you. First, I just want to I actually think this is the board goal that we were most successful on this year. And that's a credit really, I think, to Bridget with the P&L committee. So just want to call that out. And so my friendly pushback here would be that I think, building on what you're saying, is to try to keep our goals as measurable as possible. I liked having a specific number in the policy. And so just to call out, we did accomplish 3 this year. Again, credit largely to P&L. What comes to mind with me is the policy 2422, the one where we really reframed what was given to us by Strauss Esme, and then 2 with respect to technology. So I agree with all the tweaks that we're saying and about incorporating regulatory. And I'm open to going in whatever direction the board wants to, but my inclination would be to keep a number in there just to keep us having measurable goals with respect to this one.
Bridget.
I wonder if the action plan can sort of help in that, in setting concrete, markers, milestones within the goal. Again, open to conversation on what that looks like. I think for this year, I think setting a concrete number of policies was the right approach, just because I think we had sort of an idea of where we wanted to go. I worry about making that a standing piece of the goal, just because I think that could change from year to year, and who knows what happens from one year to the next. But I think if we set concrete milestones, like having a training on the board, role of the board and policy, X, Y, and Z, and just as an example, bylaws, maybe that's the answer to making it measurable rather than numbers of policies.
I do think, at the risk of being Debbie Downer, negative Nancy, it was our first year last year setting board goals. It hadn't been done in recent memory of anybody in Cherry Hill. Miriam is the longest serving member on the board, and she did not remember when the board had last done that distinct from district goals. So I think we did a really good job for year one, but I think where we fell short was the action planning piece. We tried after the retreat last year to have, and individual members did. I remember Melissa took a chunk of it and did an action plan. So we tried, but I don't think we did the piece that you were saying, Dr. Banlow, about the updates on where we were with the action plan to hold ourselves accountable to that.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be, I think we've got the idea of board goals now. And I think the action planning piece and then operationalizing that and making sure we stay on track is going to be the challenge for this year. So I'm fine with whatever, but I do agree that I think if we make the goal specific and we make the action plan concrete and governance continues to report out in their report about our progress to keep us accountable, I think we'll get a lot further, because we did do 3 this year, but nobody ever wrote that down anywhere or reported it out anywhere. And I kind of feel like that was the missing piece this year. Not that it was our first time trying this, but I think that's where I would like to see change. Renee.
So I think that there's a way to merge both of those viewpoints to get to a consensus on this. You can be vague in the way that you word the goal, but it still be quantifiable and measurable in the long run. I don't know if, so I guess I would have a question to be able to continue my thought here is there a certain number? I'm assuming all of the policies essentially should be looked at to be realigned and et cetera. So would it be logical to say something along the lines of, even if we set a increase in policies that have been aligned, that like the board will work towards, I don't know, something like that you can quantify an increase, that we don't have to necessarily be specific, where I know we really harp on Dr. Morton to say like a 5% increase, 10% increase. It doesn't have to be numbers, but even just saying an increase in the number of policies that are reviewed and aligned to district goals annually. Because again, the goal would, obviously we want the output or the outcome to be meeting our goal, but it's satisfactory and it's okay to be working towards a goal continually, especially if something is on there annually. So if we say, and we state it the board will work towards, I don't know, I'm having a hard time putting it into specific words right now. This ChatGPT would help me right now, but like increasing the number of policies that we review and align. So if we look at this year, we did 5 goals. Next year, we would hope to do 6. But if we only do 5 again, it's still measurable. We're still seeing actual data at the long run, even if we don't specifically meet that goal. It's okay to be working towards a goal. You just redefine it. And then next year, we'll have the same conversation.
Bridget.
The baseline number to work from, the easiest baseline number to work from is probably that list of sort of mandatory annual review policies. So maybe we make it 5 additional policies. I don't feel strongly about what that number should be, but if that's the way we want to go, I would sort of set that annual review mandate as the baseline.
I think it's hard to do it that way, Renee, just because I feel like there's 2 separate strands here. there's the policies that need to be updated that come from Strauss Esme. So that's one strand, and some of those are mandatory. And to Dean's point, sometimes we take those and we say, well, this doesn't make sense for Cherry Hill, and we change it, which is what we did with the one policy. There's also topics that come up that require a review of policies through a different lens. For example, enrollment balancing was a big hot topic last year. If that had moved forward in the way many of us expected, we would have had to review the policies that interact with that. That would have been a huge policy focus, but like sometimes we can't see those things coming. The technology policy package was board driven, but a lot of that was also state driven because of the change of the state cell phone law that necessitated us to repeal our old cell phone policies and then hopefully on Tuesday enact a new one aligned with the state law. So I think it's hard because we don't have control over some of those things. We don't know what's coming from Strauss, and we don't know what's coming from state law, and we don't know what topics necessarily are going to come up this year that may be emergent that we would need to review those policies. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I think that that's why we're kind of in this discussion. And I think even more so not giving it a specific number, knowing that next year or this coming year, maybe we'll see 15 policies that the state decides to do some work and make this complicated for everybody. So maybe not putting a definitive number, but saying like review the annual, like more than the annual, even if it was something like that, like the board will work towards reviewing more than the base, like the baseline required. I don't know, just something to think about. Or this document that you gave us, I think was interesting. We didn't set objectives for our goals last year. So maybe even that measurable part is put into the objective. The objective would be to review 5 every year, knowing that we have the mandatories and maybe additional ones. So maybe the goal itself is listed as just have a workflow of or improving goals and aligning them, et cetera, et cetera. But the objective itself says we would love to be able to get to 5 additional policies on top of the mandatories, knowing that whatever comes down the pike might implicate that or whatever.
Bridget?
Yeah, the other piece I'll add that we might be able to think about is something along the lines of looking more intentionally when we do get policy revisions from Strauss at how it might directly apply to Cherry Hill. And if sometimes I feel like we're hesitant to do that, of course, just blanket adoption of the Strauss recommendations, that's the easy thing to do. But I think that is one concrete area where we could improve, is across the board being more intentional in how we look at that language, because we've seen Strauss is far from perfect sometimes.
Adam?
100% agree.
Renee?
All right. So do you think that it would be, and this, I'm totally okay with you saying absolutely not to this question, but do you think it would be better for us to reframe it in more about the process at which we're developing and aligning goals rather than just doing it, since just doing it should be an expectation?
What do you mean?
Maybe redefine it, because like you're saying, like right now, I mean, I don't know, but I'm assuming based off of the conversation that we're having, historically, we've just adopted whatever Strauss has recommended. So maybe the goal focusing more on the process at which, I mean, it says it vaguely that aligning it to district goals, but making it, I don't know if that wants to be our focus more than the quantity of policies rather than the actual process itself of doing this, which we've kind of already done that this year. I mean, we have been more proactive in our role.
We've tried to be.
We have been. So I don't know. It's just a thought. If reframing the goal to be more about the work going into it rather than the output from the process.
Yeah, I mean, some of that is, I think, board member accountability, the accountability of the members of the committee or whoever subs in for that month, floats in for that month. I mean, the process should be, we get our materials ahead of the committee meeting, each one of us, and the committee folders are open to everybody on the board. We're all reviewing those proposals, giving our feedback to the chair, bringing them to the table. That's the process. So I don't know what we would change there. I don't know if you have something specific in mind or thoughts. I'm not opposed. I don't feel strongly. I think the process is kind of that is the committee process. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. This is a tough goal to quantify, and I know that, but I think, Renee, I think that was your point earlier. This is kind of one of the core roles of the board. So this is definitely something we need to focus on year after year.
So just taking a look at the actual language here.
Okay.
Dean?
I think I can summarize where the discussion has gone, and it would be that the board will identify and update policies, regulations, and or bylaws that align with and support current district goals and operational processes.
Beautiful. You're my hero.
All right.
I would say that I would, one thing that you just mentioned, I do think we should strive to set goals for ourselves the way we're asking the district to set goals. So it pains me a little bit that it's not as specific and measurable as I would like it to be, but I mean, that's the will of the board here.
So
Yeah.
can I jump in real quick, Dean?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask Jason. Jason, can you put up another piece of paper? And thank you so much for helping. I really appreciate it. And Dean, I'm going to have you just read that to Jason. He's going to put it up there because I want all of you to look at it and make sure that you're okay. So if you could just slowly repeat it so that Jason can write it.
Sure, and it builds from what's here, but it simplifies it. The board will identify and update policies, regulations, and/or bylaws that align with and support current district goals and operational processes. And I know this is minor, but I was specific with saying and/or only because it might not be all three. And operational processes, same as last year. Processes.
He's leaning into his board secretary role today.
He is. He's doing great. And his
doing
handwriting is great.
I love it. And I think the challenge is going to be the quantifiable piece, to your point. But I think that's also where once the action plan is drafted, it'll go through governance, which you guys are both on, and Adam too, and Candy too, and just making sure that we're actually measuring what we're trying to do. Because to your point, we constantly try to hold Dr. Morton's feet to the fire about making things. How will we know if we have achieved it? It has to be measurable. So we just have to make sure. So if all of us just commit to that, to having the action plan written that way and putting in those pieces, then I think it works.
Is everyone happy with that? I always like to say, speak now or forever hold your peace if you're not, because this is going to be what you're going to live with. This is your first goal. Jason, could you read it for us? Would you mind? All good? Thumbs up. All right, I'm going to take a picture of it because I'm going to leave the paper, the goals here with you so you have them. But take a look at that second goal right now while I take a picture of that. Oh, and I'm sorry, go ahead, Dean.
Well, I understand where maybe just to throw it out there, instead of spending the next time focusing on 2 and 3, may I propose another goal? Just because I want us to think about it before those two. And it relates to accountability for student achievement. I mean, I do think policy is a key one. I think we saw in the summary that we just talked about that we all think that student achievement is a focus. And what was interesting to me, just in terms of a trend analysis, was that, and for whatever reason, I mean, there's different people on the board, whatever, but that's the only one where in our self-evaluation we saw a decrease in I don't even know what that in how we're measuring ourselves with respect to accountability for student achievement. So I would propose one of our 3 goals for next year being that we try to, in next year's board self-eval, we are rating ourselves as higher, at least higher than 2026 in accountability for student achievement. And then we could leave, that would be specific and measurable, and leave it to the action plan as to how we accomplish that. But I do think it would be a goal for me that next year we see an increase in the trend for accountability for student achievement. So I just wanted to throw that out there before we spend a lot of time on 2 and 3.
So I would say, Dean, if you look at page 6 of the full evaluation under the challenges, it seems like everybody's singing the same song here a little bit, which is similar to what we've had conversations about this before, which has to do with gaps or inconsistencies for student success among different groups.
So maybe.
And
could
I
that
think
be
that was the difference this year. I think that was a big conversation on the board this year. With 18 schools, things aren't always consistent. So I agree, if we want to do one around student achievement, but I would like to maybe dig down a little bit and focus on student achievement is such a big umbrella, what people actually had concern about this year.
Totally, no, and I agree that it's a big, so my thought was for the board goal, it would just be that we commit to collectively raising how we think we're doing about that, and then leave it to the action plan, similar to how we just talked about for goal one, as to where we focus within student achievement. Not to identify that today, but just to commit that that accountability for student achievement be one of our 3 board goals for 2026, 2027.
The only thing that I'm going to push back a little bit is that seems the student achievement piece is such a huge piece in the district goals. I feel like we might muddy the water a little bit, because the board goals, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Benlow, those are things that they have to do with us as a board. I don't know. I guess having done priority 1 and all that, we spent so much time on that on the district goal side. I'm not sure. I guess I'd have to understand better what our lens would be differentiated from.
So,
that.
and I think just to clarify, what I'm just suggesting that the board goal be that we commit in the next year to evaluating ourselves as having done better on accountability for student achievement. Yeah.
So, and we can proceed however you guys, don't ever worry about that. So Dean, I'm glad that you jumped in with that. Gina, many boards will say the Board of Education will monitor blah, because student achievement is a biggie, but you could, word it that you're, overseeing and just monitoring, doing a better job, and I'm glad you're looking at the board self-evaluation, all of you. So I just wanted to throw that out there. You could wordsmith it. It's up to you. Totally up to all of you.
I also recognize I went off track. So if we want to go, I just wanted to throw that out there as one that I'm thinking about as one of 3 potential goals.
No, it's a good one. Renee, did you have something?
I guess, yes, obviously I raised my hand, but I agree that I think we need to look within ourselves and whatever that looks like for actual improvement of the board itself, because I think number 2 does that. Number 3, I'm sure the discussion will go towards where we all know that number 3 will go towards. So I don't know that that will be a continued goal. So I like the idea of using this self-evaluation, something on the self-evaluation as a goal for us next year, and knowing that policy is one of our big responsibilities, as well as maintaining or acknowledging and enforcing student achievement. I like the idea. I think it's worth a discussion. So I guess that's kind of it. From a bigger discussion, I personally, looking at the next 2 goals, I think number 2 we can keep and expand on that. I would definitely change what it says, but I like the idea of continuing to look at governance. I personally do not think we should keep number 3 just because of how it went. I know we didn't have a great action planning for it, but I think that was not the right decision last year to create that goal. So I think adding, if the 3 is kind of the golden ticket, I think it would be a great idea to look at something about the actual self-evaluation now that we've gotten to a consistent process of doing it, that we can look at and use to gauge our own reflection of ourselves.
So I had, just as long as we're I brought, I guess, 2 things to the meeting that I was hoping to talk about with goals. One is a goal about us achieving our board certification, because we are on the cusp of it. We're so close. And I feel like if we don't focus on it, some of our credits are going to start expiring. So I would propose that as a governance goal, that we put in something about achieving our full board certification. And if we can also squeeze it in there, but we don't have to, something about individual member cert too, because that's something that's also been going on in the background, but we haven't really tracked, discussed, celebrated. And I would like, so I was thinking of a governance goal around that. And the other thing, and I'm not sure if this is sort of maybe a smaller thing, and if we're only doing top 3, maybe it doesn't fit here, but I would love to have a conversation about our student reps. I felt like our student reps last year were not as involved at the board table as I've seen in the past. And I think as they're here statutorily by policy, I would love to see them become more active in conversations. I don't want them to feel like their service is limited to sitting here and listening to us. I want to make sure that we have that student voice at the table. That's something that former board members were very strong on. And I feel like we sort of let that maybe lapse a little bit. But I don't know if that rises, if we're only doing a top 3, maybe that could be something that we focus on, but maybe not as a true board goal for this year. Dean and then Renee.
Just 2 thoughts on that. I agree. I think I'd welcome discussion on the student reps. The one thing, maybe not relevant to board goals, but I think there's a missed opportunity that every meeting, all we hear is high school reports. And I think if there's student reps for the district, I think it would be nice to alternately and let them have a leadership role in the district, is my, like, go out and then report out on what's going on in the middle schools, report out on what's going on in the elementary schools. I think it's odd that we're just getting report outs on what's going on at East and West. But that's a separate discussion, I know.
Even bigger problem is that we used to get reports from the Coles program.
Yes, so.
I don't know if anybody remembers that. Who was on the board when we used to get video reports from Coles? And that fell off. And I don't know if it's because the students who were involved or interested in doing that graduated, and there isn't anybody currently in Coles who's interested in that. But I do feel like that's a big missing piece. And that's something that I used to really enjoy, getting the Coles student updates. I do think, Dean, there's an opportunity here to link with the strategic plan, because I know the administration's doing a ton of student government stuff.
Yes.
Bridget, you were with me when we came, and there was almost a mentorship opportunity with the high schoolers and the middle schoolers.
It was, I want to say it was like student leadership day. I can't
student
remember what we
leadership,
called it, but
and there were some elementary schoolers here too, right? Maybe 5th graders.
I think it was 5th grade and up.
So maybe there's an opportunity to connect, like you said, more, so that we get more of the student lens.
I have to imagine that the schools would welcome the student reps from the board coming in, interacting, and then reporting back to the board. Like, I just think there's opportunities. And then the second thing I would just say back to I completely agree and would align on a governance goal for next year being related to board certification. As it relates to the individual certification, I'm a complete proponent of that. I'm not sure that raises to the level of a board goal. I do think that needs to be an individual board member's desire and inclination. And if it's not, then it's not, but that's then something that's just out there to be seen. I don't know that it can be a board goal that the individuals do that.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair. Renee?
I'm going to try to not make this long, but I just had like an epiphany. So what if we approach these as more of a strategic plan, with each of the 3 items that we're looking at as I know it's not the S in SMART, but it's more of like a larger topic. So policy, and with the understanding that this be a consistent thing that we look at every year, and for boards to come, knowing that boards in the recent past have not done this. So policy being one, and last year we looking at specifically 3. This year we're going to change it to make it a little bit more broad, and then we're going to focus our action plan items are a little bit different this year. Governance can be the same one. So policy governance. I personally think that we should do something about superintendent board relationship, accountability, those kind of things. That's just a suggestion. It could be literally anything. But then within each goal, having a I don't want to say broad because it should be specific, but having a goal that targets something specific, but leaves it open that each year we can adjust the actual action items and the thing that we're addressing. For example, policy. Looking at, so we know that statutorily we have to have the reps at the table, but maybe this year under our policy goal, one of our action plan items is to look at our policy for student reps at the table, either redefine it or look how we can build upon that so that we're including them more, and including the lower levels, whether that be through presentations that they put together with their principals and send to us that we can just show at the table, or I would love to see like 5th graders and middle schoolers here presenting and things like that. As much as I would love to think that my own middle schooler would be into that, I can guarantee you she probably would not. So I don't know. Maybe there are kids out there. I don't know about the elementary level. I would imagine middle school, yes, but I don't know how likely that is. But I feel like we can maybe look at those things every year when we reevaluate our goals. We look at different things that we want to target for the upcoming year to improve, keeping our goals with more of a strategic plan vision than like a step by step. Like that 3rd one really gets me because it's such a specific thing that we were unable to achieve. And I think we kind of set ourselves up for failure with that one. So that's just a thought to keep the goals in mind, more strategic planning approach.
So I'm going to jump in here because you have a lot, you are having excellent conversations regarding your goals. I wanted to say that. Really great deliberation. I want you to focus on a second goal now with what you have a lot of great ideas right now. So what is something that was mentioned? We have up there, we have student achievement, student reps, we have board certification. What is, talk amongst yourselves, what do you want to marry for the next year?
Adam.
So sort of in response to what Renee mentioned, the community leadership goal, I don't know that it's worth keeping as it is, but I do feel that having a goal about community engagement, either on its own or rolled into something, is still very important. Board attendance and community engagements, it's kind of a guideline. Try to attend at least one per month. I think we do pretty well at getting folks out to community engagements. I'd love to see that continue or even improve. But things that are built into our district goals and our strategic plan, community engagement on all major decisions, having town halls, surveys, ad hoc committees. That's something that has factored into every major recommendation this year, even when it's not always apparent. And it was a big goal for last year. I don't know that it's necessarily captured in this in last year's goal the way it's written, but I think maintaining a focus on community engagement and collaboration is still something that should be either on its own or embedded in one of our goals in some way.
Okay, so we're going to add that to the list.
And I absolutely agree. I know that in communications committee, we talked about through our strategic plan, how we were going to really build on that goal with town halls and community involvement. But perhaps this is something, if we want to, and I'm just like spitballing here, want to go off and say we have individual member goals, like with individual certifications. Maybe this is something that falls under that with community leadership, and we hold ourselves accountable kind of the way we were supposed to last year. I don't know. It was hard, right? It was hard to kind of enforce this one. But I think to Mr. Greenbaum's point, it's really important to get out there and be in the community and understand what's going on. Otherwise, why are we here, right? Like we need to get out there and understand where people are and meet them where they're at, more importantly.
Melissa.
I was just going to say that I think the idea of the role of the student reps kind of can fall under if we keep all three: policy, governance, and some sort of community, right? Because by letting student reps, by opening that up to our elementary schools and our middle schools, we are broadening the whole community, that we're able to see our student community, our student body community delivered in a way that maybe the general public doesn't see.
Renee, and then Bridget, and then Dean.
Yes. So I think all of what we just said can be achieved kind of based off of what I was just saying. So like under policy, we can have specific, like as far as the action plan goes, specific items about board reps, state requirements, academic achievement. Under governance, as whatever that goal will say, like maintaining proper governance or whatever, can be our board and individual member cert, attendance to meetings, community engagement events, statutory requirements for us to hold the district administrators to, trainings, things like that. I think we can keep track of those things a lot easier when they're action plan items rather than larger goals. So I think in order for us to maintain accountability as a board, whatever our goal looks like for governance, the board will maintain a comprehensive, I don't know, whatever that says. Under that would say by attending community events, by attending meetings, by doing X, Y, and Z. And that way, I think it'll be a lot easier for us to track performance in that way, rather than this larger item goal where it's not so specific and it's harder to create an action plan off of a goal that's not as clear, if that makes sense.
This is probably similar to what Renee just kind of touched on. I think in terms of the student reps, I agree with you 100% that I want to be more intentional in how we engage them, what we ask of them, what they get out of their board service. I don't know that it needs to be a standalone goal, but I do think it could be incorporated in the action plans under both policy and governance, maybe community engagement. We've been a little more intentional this year in engaging our student reps in policy conversations. Elias, who is one of these student reps from East, actually came to 2 of our policy committee meetings to kind of share his more anecdotal thoughts, but how technology is being used at the high school setting, some of his thoughts there. I'd like to be more intentional in inviting our board reps to participate in that way. I think that could be folded under in an action plan for each of our goals, whatever they might be. And there might be a role for the student representatives in communicating out to their respective communities what we're working on, what we're doing, and how the things that the board does impacts those communities. So I agree that we need to be more intentional. We can also take a look at the student rep policy, which we've just recently, before I was committee chair, we did just recently look at that, but we could take another look at that policy and see if there's things that we can do to strengthen it and make it a little more active.
Dean.
I just wanted to get granular and suggest another goal number 2 then, in terms of wording.
Perfect.
For governance, the board will advance progress toward achieving NJSBA board certification. Is that a goal number 2? Just to hit that, or is that too specific?
No,
I
it's
was
good.
gonna make it stronger. I don't want to say advanced progress. I want to say the board will achieve board certification in the 2026-27 school year, right? Because March is our deadline.
March 2027. You guys
Right.
could do it this year. I could come out 2 evenings and you'll get, it's a credit hour. For each hour you get credit. It has to be a full, the board, we have to have a full quorum of the board. Your superintendent needs to be there. And if we have 2 workshops at some point, you'll be able to
We're
achieve it.
so
You're
close.
so close.
Can we make it like a strong?
So absolutely. I think because, not to be dramatic, we were easily going to get that. I would want that to be like an action item towards a bigger governance goal.
This is where I would just say start small and start low and go slow, or something. Like, this is our second year with board goals. I see what you're saying, but if we're all aligned on an actionable goal, I think that could be the goal for next year, and then continue to broaden from there.
I definitely see what you're saying. I think that like literally we just need 2 more. And even worst case scenario, if for whatever reason we don't get that by March, we only lose 1. So we only need 3 by March of 28. So it's really like, it's easy to do.
27. Yeah.
Well, we need more for that, but we only lose 1 in like an entire year after that.
Mhm.
So
Right.
It's like, it's not like we're starting all over again if we miss that March. I obviously want to get that this year. I just feel like that, yes, we should go low and go slow, but we did that last year. I don't know. I mean, whatever. If that's the way we want to go, then that's fine. I just feel like we can be a little bit more aggressive in our expectations for ourselves because there's so much more to work on as a governance of the board itself.
My only fear, and again, not to be negative Nancy, my only fear about going big, which is what I hear you guys doing, like making really broad goals and then having all these items underneath the action plans, is who is going to be in charge of making sure that happens? Because I'm just going to be really honest, it can't be me. Like, if this is going to fall on me to make sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing all the time, I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. I feel like this is fine if this is what we all agree to today, but people have to take a piece of it and make sure that they're going to actually write the action plans and actually monitor it, and actually, because the problem always is that accountability piece. I'm the leader, but I can't force anybody to do anything. I can beg and plead and ask, but I just worry that what's going to happen is we're going to have like 17 items under governance that we want to achieve. And then we're going to be sitting here next year just to be like, oops, we forgot. I just don't know how that's going to work. Bridget.
In my mind, Renee, feel free to disagree. I don't want to give the governance committee work, but I feel like this is accountability for our goals is a function of the governance committee, and not just the chair. I mean, I think there are four members, 3 or 4 goals. That's up to you how you want to chunk it out. I mean, I think ultimately responsibility for tracking and measuring lives within governance. And then I think we should work with Kate, take a look at our board agenda, what we want that to look like. I kind of like the idea of a public report out at whatever cadence we choose on our progress against the goals.
And I think that lives in the governance committee report. I mean, I think we already have the structure for that under committee and delegate reports at the board work session.
Yeah.
Dean and then Renee.
So just again, to keep this moving, my position for this one would be, I think that would be a really big win for 2026, 2027 if we get board certification. And I think a goal for this upcoming year could be, I even said, I was less aggressive. I said, we'll advance progress. We're now saying we'll achieve board certification. There can be a very specific action plan then. It sounds like there's just a few requirements that we have to do to achieve that. And then we could go from there in the next year. But I would suggest like keeping it achievable.
Melissa and then Renee.
I think if we only need 2 by March, as has been stated, I think it would be crazy not to think that we can't do that and achieve that goal. No, it's like, make that statement, have that be the goal.
Or do we need to go bigger, which is what Renee is saying? Is it too easy, I guess is the question.
Also, we already have the action plan. It's already happening. Like we've already like discussed what trainings we're doing. Like it's already in place, even though it wasn't really a goal for this year. It's already in place because it's already going to have, I don't want to say it's going to, because you never know, but we already have the steps are already in place. We've already set up those meetings to achieve that. And that's what I'm saying. Like I definitely agree with you that I think we shouldn't bite off more than we can chew. I would love to have like 15 things that we work on, but we could easily have that by the end of October. And like, then what for the rest of the year? And like you're saying, I think I would just like to remind everybody from last year that I thought a big way that we could hold ourselves accountable for the last goal was to publicly state like what we're doing and things like that. And I think being able to call out where we are, if we make like community engagement as one of our action items under governance, we could easily say like, okay, we agreed to 1 a month. Great. Thank you, Dean. You went to so-and-so last week or whatever. It looks like 4 out of 5 of our members were able to achieve or attend things this month. For the 5 of you that could not, think about what you can be like, not to shame people, but to hold them accountable for what they agreed to do by sitting at this table. And as governance chair, I have no problem doing that. I might tick off a couple of those boxes of some of the people you noted earlier, but I think that it's too easy. I think we're already aligned. We're already on track to achieve that. And it probably should have been a goal for this year because it's already now at the end of the year and we're just getting it. So I think it would have been reasonable to set last year. I think even if it's just one more thing that we can look at, I just think because we're already on track to get it, we need to do more.
Can I jump in real quick? Just so Renee and I did talk about topics and we'll just make sure we get on my calendar. All right. Cause it's starting to, I want to make sure I make time for you guys because I cover districts in 2 counties. So make sure we get on that calendar as soon as we can. All right. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Dean.
I think there's a solution then to expanding. I think the Board of Education will achieve board certification in the 2026-2027 year, it's a school year, and continue to work towards achieving the Carol E. Larson Master Board certification. Because that then sets the stage that we're not just going to finish with board certification, we'll work towards, there's more work that can be done in the world of governance. And that goes to the NJSBA's.
And that's perfect because I have 2 boards, Clayton and Winslow got board certification last spring. So they're working on that, the Carol E. Larson. So that was one of their goals. That's good. Good.
I'll just add to that then the link then to the 3rd goal for me. One of the things you have to do to achieve the Carol E. Larson Master Board certification is to demonstrate a commitment to academic student achievement. And so that's where I think we could have a 3rd goal around student achievement.
Renee.
I love that. We just need to push ourselves a little more. So I like that idea.
Sure. So the Board of Education will achieve board certification in the 2026-2027 school year and make progress towards the Carol and it's CAROLE period Larson LARSEN Master Board certification.
Renee, is that enough? Did you want more? I feel like the governance committee is
Nothing is ever
asking
good
for
enough.
more.
No, I
Are you
think, yes.
asking for more?
No, I think that is good. I just want it because yes, we do need to get on the calendar, but that's just a matter. I don't know when that fits in. So whenever we can just fit in like 2 more hours, I think we need 3
You need
4
credits. So that's like,
in addition to that. So
but
yes,
I could come out 2
but
times.
even by
and
next
you'll get
March,
that.
yes, we will get it done. I think just having one, once we achieve that, I think it would be nice to have something else that we're working towards. So yes.
And you have 2 years to achieve that, Carol Lee Larson, after you get your certification.
Were there any other governance, since we're on like goal number 2 is going to be a governance goal every year, was there anything else that people felt really strongly about that they wanted to see? Or does work focusing on the NJSBA certification process work for everybody? Everybody feels okay? I'm looking around. I feel like one of the hardest things sometimes about being board president is I worry, like I always try to balance everybody's voice. So I'm trying to make sure that like I move around the room as much as I can.
Doing a
Renee
great
has
job.
something else. I knew it was
One last thing. I'm sorry. I think that this is helpful because something that I personally struggled with this year is, one, not really understanding the purpose of governance, the committee, and 2, not having like a lot of clear actionable steps to work on. There was things like intermittently here and there, but having like real work to do will be helpful. Like all of the other committees we have very clear standards and things that you're looking at. It's a little bit more gray with governance. So having once we get this, having something to work towards will be helpful to have a consistent agenda going for governance.
Candy.
This is pretty much unrelated to goals, but as just a comment on that, do we need to make a charter for governance so that we have something to refer back to, so that we make sure we're governing through governance the way we need to? And I don't know what that looks like or how we even go about that, but just throwing it out there.
So just to build off that, Bridget and I were looking at the workshop agenda, which was just released this week, and there are so many governance related workshop opportunities. A lot of them seem to be on Monday. So I don't know what everybody's schedules look like, but I actually wasn't in the past. I feel like Mondays was kind of a lighter day.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden there's all this stuff on Monday. So I'm going to try to rearrange my life that way I can get down there on Monday. Because last year I got to the point where I was doing almost exclusively board leadership and governance related trainings at workshops. So if this is something you guys are interested in, I would just say to like take a look at that and start building your planner, because there's a lot of really good stuff. And I do think governance is the different committee because it's the board's committee, whereas everything else is in partnership with administration, and it's a collaboration to drive the agenda for CNI, BNF, P&L, special education. Governance is our own, so we need to be the drivers of our own bus and figure out what we want to do. All right, so we have policy, governance,
okay.
And contestant number 3 is Adam.
I'm contestant number 3. So something I want to open this discussion with is, as I mentioned earlier, I think some sort of community engagement and collaboration is important. I'm very hesitant to remove that, but I've been thinking about some of the things Dean said about student achievement, and that's priority 1 in our strategic plan. So taking a look at what some of the key performance indicators were in our strategic plan, how would we hold ourselves accountable there? Is one more important than the other? And where I've been kind of leaning is what is actionable. I know Renee has talked about this in a couple of these discussions. What's actionable? When we look at community engagement, every one of those things that we've talked about and more, we can make decisions to do that. We can do that through governance or bylaws or however we want to do it, just the norms of the board. With achievement, the board governs through policy. We hold the CSA accountable. That's by statute, and that's a big part of what we do as well. But how do we do that? Looking at the key performance indicators, like how do we increase math scores and include that through deliberate action? It seems a lot more indirect to me, and I was kind of leaning towards just amending the policy goal, the first one, to add policies that align with what we have in the draft already, and that support student achievement, because I feel like through policy is the most direct way we impact that. There are other ways, but I'm struggling to quantify that and figure out how we would have a direct impact that is measurable in a goal, other than doing what we normally do and then waiting to see test scores or benchmarks and see what those look like. So I wanted to put that out there. I think being accountable for student achievement is important, but I struggle a little bit to see how it's actionable. And I wonder if that's something that could be added to an existing goal.
Dean.
I agree. And I think so. This would be tricky. Just to be clear in what I was proposing, I put words to it. And a potential goal here in my head is the third goal would be accountability for student achievement in its board self-evaluation 2027. This is called board self-evaluation 2026. So in its board self-evaluation 2027, the board will rate itself higher compared to 2026 on accountability for student achievement. So that's all I'm trying to get at. But you're absolutely right, Adam, that how we would do that, what that might just mean is, in terms of an action plan, that we're elevating awareness of academic achievement in our board meetings. We're constantly talking about academic achievement. We're holding C&I accountable to maintaining. It's just, for some reason, and I don't know what the reason is, that's the only, I don't know what you call these things
Rubric.
that we went down
Rubric,
on
yeah.
relative to last year. And so I understand the intangibility. And so maybe that's how I would make it specific. It's just that we as a board, all I'm committing to is that we as a board would be raising our focus on these issues.
Bridget.
So I'm struggling a little bit with what that looks like
Right,
in
I-
practice.
yeah.
I agree. I would like to see our self-evaluation score in this area go up for next year. In reading through what we've identified as our greatest opportunities and challenges in this area, a lot of it ties back to things like budget, equity, stuff that is, I certainly won't say it's out of the board's control, but things that fall under the purview of administration, and where we would hold administration certainly accountable through the CSA evaluation. I'm not sure what we could identify as an action plan that would advance that goal, unless it's something as simple as, I don't know if any of us felt like we fell short in, this is a bad example, but the questions that we ask in presentations, or, how we vet some of those things. I just don't know. I don't disagree with you. I just don't know what it looks like in practice.
Can
Dr.
I'm sorry,
Van Hal?
Bridget, I mean,
Yeah, please.
okay. If you turn that big document I gave you, and you're probably looking at it, page 5 of 17, student achievement. So you are all making excellent points. So what does that look like for a board? You probably were already doing it. Some boards will, say to monitor and support the chief school administrator in their work with, and this is just with student achievement across the board. And what does that look like, Lori? What does it look like? And you're probably already doing it. You have, Kwame and his team come out, Dr. Morton and his team come out and present, different data. So you're modeling it for the entire community that this is something that's important to you. How are we doing? You're really, so all of these things that are listed under accountability for student achievement, those are the kinds of things that I know Cherry Hill's already doing. This is a great district. But that's where some boards will focus when they do make that goal, just an FYI.
I mean, it looks to me like, looking at that, like I said before, that the concerns that we had, and I think this relates to distinct things that occurred over this academic year, had to do with maintaining consistency across the schools. But that's not really, other than calling that out, that's not something the board directly has control over. So to Renee's point, like, I don't know how we might be setting ourselves up for an immeasurable goal if we try to frame something around that. Renee.
I can't remember what I said before. However, I have more thoughts now. So, so thinking always, thinking about this, I do really like this, and I don't know why it didn't occur to me to just read what our thoughts were about this. But after reading about it, it sounds like if maybe just simply making the words student achievement a part of every conversation that we have, like those physical words. So how does for example, staff development and focus on PD, we just approved the PD plan. So I know we did, but did we intentionally say, how does this directly impact student achievement? Why does sending the teachers to X, Y, and Z training, or how will that impact student achievement? We talk about the curriculum's easy. So, okay, we're starting this new math curriculum. What's it going to do? That one's an easy, low hanging fruit that's directly going to impact student achievement. Okay, so I feel like we did that with budget too. So we talked about the middle school model and all of that and changing all of that. How is this going to impact student achievement? Unfortunately, we did say we don't at this moment when we're making the decision, we don't know. We're going to continue to look at that and reinforce that. So if we decided to make this a goal, the action plan or the action items that we take is maybe just simply using that language in every committee, every discussion that we have, and being more intentional when we're here at the table, tying it back to that, just like we're going to hopefully have a governance report out every meeting about where we stand on these goals. It'll simply just be, okay, so CNI is an easy one. Like BNF reports out like, okay, this is the discussion that we had around student achievement, even though it's not like clearly we implement a curriculum, which is obviously going to impact student achievement. We'll say we are making this decision in BNF, and this is the discussion that we had around how it's going to impact students. Because if you read this, we do actually do all of this stuff. I think it's just hard for us knowing that there's so many things that we deal with budgets, with state requirements, with community feedback that we get. It's so hard to see how the work we're doing is related to the students, even though we know it obviously is. But I think if we're just being more intentional about using that language and having those discussions, it might be easier for us to realize what we're doing as far as student achievement goes. Am I making sense? Okay.
Adam and then Bridget.
So before we get too deep in the weeds about student achievement, do we have a consensus or any thoughts on what the third goal should be? There's nothing that we do that doesn't center around student achievement, right? That's why it's priority one in our strategic plan. It goes through our district goals. That is at the center of everything we do. When we talk about budget and fiscal responsibility, it's balancing it with how do we still achieve achieve our goals with student achievement. Last year's goal is about community leadership or community engagement. My thoughts there are that is an area we identified last year. We took a lot of deliberate action to engage with the community on every major issue. It's something that's still a priority. It's something I think we should continue to build on, and it's easily actionable. But before we get too deep in the weeds on one particular topic, I'm curious what other people's thoughts are on where to focus.
So I think the board has a lot more control over the community engagement piece. And so I think community engagement should be goal 3. And I think we should include academic achievement explicitly in goal 1 around policy, because policy I think it has to be things we have control over, direct control. So I would be in favor of putting student achievement under the policy piece of it, because that's something the board directly has control over. And then doing a community engagement goal, because that's also something the board directly has control over. When I look at our ratings, I think our ratings are actually pretty high. I don't see that anybody rated us in any category under student achievement under unsatisfactory. And the most people who rated us as area for growth under any domain in student achievement was 2. So while I always think we should be centering student achievement in everything we do, the way that we really do that, I sent out the Iowa Lighthouse study a few weeks ago in our Saturday update. The way the boards majorly impact student achievement is by having a vision for student achievement, that every student can be successful, and supporting that, articulating that vision consistently. And I think this year our focus is going to be around making sure that includes everybody inclusively, special education students, all schools, and setting that expectation and then holding the superintendent accountable for that expectation. But how you would ever quantify that in a goal, I think would be hard. I think the actionable piece of that is the policy piece. So that would be my, as one of 9, I would say, put student achievement under policy and make goal 3 a new community engagement goal that we have control over and that we can measure ourselves. But that's just me. I'm willing to listen to anybody else. Renee.
In spirit of building consensus, I have a thought. What if we address the board self-evaluation holistically, knowing that the student achievement is one we drop the farthest in, but there's some that are barely better than last year. So community leadership is also one of them. So maybe we look at this as our goal. Our third goal is to improve in our, however you want to word it, improve in our board of self-evaluation in 2026. And then we have one action item under each domain or whatever we call them. And then community leadership being it whatever the action item is. And even if it is still one, the board members go to one event, having it as a clear action item rather than a bigger goal, because I mean, in spirit of being transparent, I think we all knew that all 9 of us were not going to hit that goal this year. I mean, it's life, and there's going to put the elephant out there. There's some of us that try a little harder to do this than others. So it's just the reality of it. And I think if maybe it'll kind of scratch both backs here, saying that we will improve in our board self-evaluation in 2026. And however that looks under each domain, maybe that'll helpful, knowing that we are still going to specifically target community leadership. And that can be attending one meeting or engaging PTAs more or whatever, or both of those things, whatever that looks like, so that we have a clear action item to achieve a bigger goal. So next year, maybe we feel like we did better in community leadership overall, even though 7 out of 9 of us attended a community event every month. Does that make sense? So we're still looking at tracking progress towards a goal and being optimistic that we can meet a goal, but that kind of goal is just unrealistic for 9 people with lives and
so can
things.
I rephrase?
Sure.
I think I love what you're saying.
Okay.
I think I'm in love with this.
Consensus.
I think what you're saying is an overarching goal about improving our self-rating on the board self-evaluation, and then an action item tied to each domain under the self-evaluation that's specific and measurable. So we'll have an action item under vision, mission, and goals, an action item under policy. So for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 domains, those will be the 6 action items. This is a lot to track. Is everybody cool with this? Everybody's good? I'm seeing maybe some nods, maybe some skepticism.
You say a lot would actually just be 6. We're going to try to keep it so it would be one goal with 6 items in an action plan with one thing for each domain, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I think that's what Renee was saying. Is that what you're saying, Renee? Melissa?
Just wondering if this falls under the governance committee to track it, or would this fall somewhere else? Yeah.
So that means governance would have to develop an action plan. So governance would really hold 2 and 3, and then P&L would hold 1.
Well, actually, I would just suggest that maybe P&L could identify the action item for policy. C&I could create the action item for accountability for student achievement, and it all just flows through governance.
Y'all are brilliant. Have I told you guys that lately?
You're doing an awesome job.
That's amazing, because that's kind of echoes what we did for district goals and strategic plans. So number 3 over here, accountability for student achievement, C&I holds that. We do it in our meeting, Dean. We come up with what is the one thing we want to do this year? Who would do vision, mission, goals? Is that governance? Policy.
That might actually be committee of the whole, just because that, frankly, that was where there was some discussion around this.
We could do that in committee of the whole.
Right.
We could do that in committee of the whole. We would just have to put that on the agendas. Don't let me forget that. Somebody write that down, because it's going to go right out of my brain. Policy goes to P&L, student achievement to C&I, governance, team relationships, and accountability. That's governance. Resource management and oversight is B&F, and community leadership to communications committee.
Yeah, we could do that.
Very impressive. All right, let's get
Teamwork
the wording.
makes the dream work.
Let's get that wordsmith. Goal 3.
Melissa.
I'm just thinking about some of the other committees that we have, and would it be possible to incorporate the special ed committee on the accountability for student achievement
Yes.
as that?
Yes, that's great. So I think just changing what I had said before, in its board self-evaluation 2027, the board will rate itself higher compared to 2026. Is that what we're saying?
Lock it in. Yeah.
I don't know that I like that though. I'm being critical of myself. Like, is there a better way to say that? The board will evaluate itself higher in 2027 compared to 2026.
The board will achieve a higher self-satisfaction score. Yeah, that's the word that I was looking for. Thank you.
The board will improve in each domain.
I was thinking about it. I think that's setting us up for,
Okay.
that would be a higher goal I'm saying. I don't know that we want to commit to increasing each one. That would be ideal, but I don't know if that's too aggressive.
Maintain or increase? We don't want to fall below. We don't want to do worse.
We did similar wording for the administration in areas where they were performing well. We said maintain or improve. Right.
Well, it's kind of like we were talking about in CNI when we talked about how some of the things that we were measuring, especially under social studies, were already so high that it was like, how are we even going to go? If you look at the social studies benchmarks, if you're already at 98%, what are you going to look, what is that going to look like?
When Jason's done, I'll have him read it and make sure that everybody's happy with the wording. He's doing a great job. Thank you.
Question? Gina, question? Let me ask a question. Dr. Banlow, have you seen boards adopt a goal like that in the past related to like just trying to improve its self-evaluation?
I've only been with school boards for 2 years,
Okay.
so I have not, but I think it's excellent.
Okay.
I really do. I think it's excellent. So this one you wanted, right? Thank you for saying that, because I usually do that. I'm so interested in what you guys are saying. All right. Are you okay with what's up there? You have come up with 3 really solid goals, and the deliberation process that you went through was outstanding. I give you an A++. Okay, so great job. All right. So we're going to transition, and we're going to transition to the end of our meeting. But I want to ask Gina, is there anything that you want to share with the board? I just wanted to give you an opportunity. Is there any updates or anything?
The only small update is that we had talked about having our annual HIB ethics training with Kate on Tuesday night, but it didn't appear on the agenda. So I asked her if there was a reason. She said, not really, she's ready to do it. But we also have 3 presentations on Tuesday night. We have a preschool update. We have an update from Dr. Morton on some community engagement sessions, and we have a projects update, which I think is going to be fairly extensive. So are you guys married to having the HIB ethics training on Tuesday, or should we pend it until we have a meeting that's less presentation heavy? Does anybody have a feeling on that? Does anybody have a big feeling on Tuesday? So then if it's okay, I'm going to talk to Dr. Morton when he's back and just see what our September meetings look like, how busy they are. Because I know sometimes if there's multiple presentations in a meeting, by the time we get to the last presentation, it's hard for everybody to really lock in. And these are really big topics that we're focusing on. So I don't want to pack too much. I thought a late August meeting would be perfect for training because I didn't think it was going to be busy, but it turns out it is busy. And I know Bridget has a lot of policy things that she wants to discuss as well in P&L. Renee, and then Dean.
So just a thought on that, just a reminder on that, that will not count towards our certification because it's not done through NJSBA. So just a thought that if we were to extend it or push it back, that's going to delay that process. So I would probably agree, even though it's long, I would agree that maybe if we're going to be doing it this year, we should probably just do it now when we only have a few meetings from here until now to get the rest of our training in.
Okay.
And yes, and then the only other thoughts, just so I don't forget it, is that I think that since we have a lot of work to do with this, we need to get these on a committee agenda sooner rather than later.
Dean.
I just wanted to clarify, this is a requirement per calendar year, correct? Or no?
Yes.
Okay, because, and then, so just planning ahead as you're having these discussions, I do think having HIB training in like late January, early February is ideal timeline for the new board members, just to do that at the start of that year rather than,
I agree.
you know, so.
This was
we'll
a
get it
miss.
done- Right, we'll get it done now, but then if we can get it on the schedule for shortly after the new board members join, I think that's the optimal.
I
time.
absolutely agree. And I think this was the impetus for that calendar goal from last year, because there's inevitably things that as things get busy, the budget conversation was hot in February. We were finishing up enrollment balancing. I think it was just one of those things where in the juggle, it didn't get juggled. But so I completely agree with you. I think HIB ethics training should ideally be done early in the year, but we haven't done it in 2026. So it needs to get done. Melissa.
Do you know about how long the training is? I mean, is
It's
it?
not.
It's not.
It's,
I think just do it then.
just do it. Everybody wants it. All right. Kate's ready to do it.
I think just do it.
Kate's ready to do it. So I'll let her know and then we'll add it to the agenda for Tuesday night. The only other thing I wanted to say, and I sort of mentioned this before, was that I think I would like to find a way to articulate, not that everybody needs to do them, but those of us who are working on individual board member certifications. I remember when Kim was governance chair, she talked about that too. And I feel like that's an item that we dropped and didn't necessarily have follow through. So I'd like to celebrate our successes a little bit more and make sure that we articulate that in the meeting. And the final thing is that we do have Camden County School Boards Association is going to hold one of their sessions here in Cherry Hill in November. And if possible, I'd like full board participation in that, since we are the host board. If that's not possible, I understand things happen, people are busy, but I have registered and I would like as many of us to be here, Melissa registered, to host, Candy registered, the other boards as we can, because I think it's important that we step up. We are a board that people are looking to lead. Bridget and Candy and I have been involved in the fair funding conversations, the statewide ones, and everybody's looking to Cherry Hill. So I think we need to take that seriously and make sure that we're doing that on a board level as well. So I think that was it. That's all I had.
And I will send you ASAP your draft of your goals and the templates. I'll get that to you probably today or tomorrow. All right. Who did not get a beach ball chance? I think it was. probably know what you're. Or it's okay. Just grab one. You don't have to. Even if you get yours, it's okay. This way. So. Okay, so we're going to start with Renee and then we'll work our way around the table. Just read what was written on that paper, something that resonated with or was something you learned new today.
Learning more about each board member.
I have, we agree on more than we disagree.
I did it again. I don't know why it's so loud. I'm sorry, microphone. That all of us seemingly have a well invested interest in pushing our district forward. Thank you all.
There is more of a general appetite for growing and improving on this board this year.
Even though we are 9 individuals, we come together as a group really well.
Dean is a great wordsmith. He was able to bring us all together and synthesize the discussion.
All right.
Something that resonated, listen to others' priorities, be open to all ideas.
You have all done a phenomenal job this morning on a Saturday. I want to thank you so much for your dedication and commitment to the children in Cherry Hill, and have a great rest of the weekend. And thank you for having me come in. I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you. Thank you.
So much.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Ms. Sherfain, all board members in favor? The meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.